Let's get right into it. Number 5, the ancient Egyptians and their eternal dice obsession. Picture this. You're an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, and you've just been mummified and placed in your tomb for eternity. What's the first thing archaeologists find next to your golden treasures? Dice. Lots of them. The ancient Egyptians were so obsessed with gambling that they literally took their games to the grave. We're talking about ivory dice dating back to 2000 BC, found buried alongside pharaohs who apparently couldn't bear the thought of an afterlife without a good game of chance. These weren't just simple betting games either. The Egyptians had this game called Senet, and they believed winning at it would guarantee you safe passage through the afterlife. Imagine dying and still worrying about your gambling skills determining whether you make it to Egyptian heaven. They found 4 complete Senet sets in King Tutankhamun's tomb. 4 sets. This teenager king was so committed to his gaming that he packed multiple backup games for the afterlife. The wildest part is that Egyptians didn't just gamble for fun or money. They thought the gods were literally telling them their fate through dice rolls. Every time they threw those bone cubes, they believed they were getting a divine message about their future. Your gambling addiction suddenly doesn't seem so bad when you realize people 4,000 years ago were convinced the universe was speaking to them through dice. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more mind-blowing historical content like this. Trust me, what's coming next will completely change how you think about ancient civilizations. Number 4, ancient China's government-sponsored lottery addiction. You think modern governments invented using gambling to fund public projects? Think again. The Chinese were running state lotteries over 2,000 years ago to build the Great Wall of China. That's right, one of the world's most famous landmarks was partially funded by gambling addicts playing an ancient version of Keno. The Chinese called it white pigeon ticket because they used homing pigeons to carry the results to distant villages. Imagine waiting for a pigeon to fly back just to find out if you won the ancient Chinese lottery. But here's where it gets crazy. Chinese rulers were just as addicted to gambling as their citizens. Some emperors literally gambled away entire state treasuries. We're talking about leaders who had absolute power over millions of people, and they couldn't stop themselves from betting the kingdom's money on dice games. The Chinese also invented the first playing cards in the 9th century, though nobody knows exactly what games they played, because the rules have been lost to history. They were so far ahead of everyone else that they had dominoes, mahjong, and complex betting games while the rest of the world was still figuring out basic agriculture. Ancient Chinese citizens would bet on animal fights, with cockfights and dogfights being incredibly popular. They literally bred animals specifically for gambling purposes. Tell me your location in the comments. I'm curious to see where all you history lovers are watching from around the world. Number 3, Native American tribes and their sacred gambling rituals. Before Europeans ever set foot in the Americas, Native American tribes had turned gambling into a spiritual experience. These weren't just games for entertainment, they were sacred rituals that connected players to the spirit world. Different tribes had this game called hand game, where players would hide markers in their hands while their teammates sang power songs to give them supernatural advantages. Imagine going to a casino today and having your friends sing magic songs to help you win at blackjack. That's essentially what Native Americans were doing hundreds of years ago. The stakes were insane. Tribes would literally gamble for land rights, horses, and even marriage arrangements. You could lose your entire territory in a single dice game. Archaeological digs have found hand game bones and counting sticks that predate recorded history. According to tribal oral traditions, the animals themselves taught humans how to gamble. The story goes that people learned these games by watching animals play similar games in nature. Plains tribes like the Dakota and Cheyenne were considered the most reckless gamblers in North America. They would bet everything they owned on arrow flipping games and stick dice competitions. When European colonists introduced card games, these tribes immediately became obsessed with poker and other betting games. They adapted so quickly that within decades, they were teaching settlers new gambling strategies. Number 2, ancient Greek gods who invented cosmic gambling. The ancient Greeks took gambling to a completely different level by making their gods the ultimate gamblers. According to Greek mythology, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon literally played dice to divide up the entire universe. Zeus won the heavens, Poseidon got the seas, and Hades ended up with the underworld. The fate of reality itself was decided by a dice game between three brothers. Greek soldiers were so addicted to gambling that military leaders had to ban dice games because troops were losing their weapons and armor in bets. Imagine being in the middle of a war and having to fight the enemy with a stick because you gambled away your sword the night before. The Greeks had patron gods of gambling. Hermes and Pan were considered the divine protectors of gamblers. Rolling double sixes was called the throw of Aphrodite and guaranteed victory in any game. Ancient Greek pottery shows people betting on cockfights, dogfights, and bird battles. They bred animals specifically for gambling entertainment. Greek philosophers wrote extensively about gambling addiction, describing people who lost their homes, families, and entire fortunes to dice games. The problems we associate with modern gambling existed thousands of years ago in ancient Greece. If this is blowing your mind, make sure to share this video with someone who loves learning about ancient history. They'll thank you for it. Number 1. Ancient Rome's underground gambling empire. Despite gambling being completely illegal in ancient Rome, the entire empire was secretly obsessed with dice games. The Romans created the world's first gambling chips to get around anti-gambling laws. When caught with dice, they'd claim they were only playing for worthless chips, not real money. These ancient Romans were basically the first people to figure out legal loopholes for their gambling addiction. Roman soldiers were notorious for their dice obsession. They'd gamble during military campaigns, between battles, and even while on guard duty. The Bible actually references this when Roman soldiers cast lots for Jesus' cloak during the crucifixion. That's a direct mention of Roman dice gambling happening during one of history's most significant moments. The Romans had two different types of dice. Tali were large, four-sided dice marked with specific numbers, while tesserae were smaller, six-sided dice just like modern ones. Rich Romans would have dice made from precious materials like ivory and gold, while common citizens carved theirs from animal bones. What makes this truly insane is that gambling was punishable by fines worth 4 times whatever you were betting. But Romans were so addicted that they risked these massive penalties just to roll dice. Underground gambling dens operated throughout the empire, hidden in basements and secret rooms. Roman emperors were just as bad as their citizens. Some rulers lost fortunes on chariot races and gladiator fights. They'd bet on everything from dice games to public executions. The entire Roman economy was secretly built on illegal gambling money flowing through black market networks. Even Roman women, who weren't supposed to gamble at all, found ways to place bets. They'd use servants as intermediaries or disguise their gambling as innocent social gatherings. Roman literature is filled with stories about families destroyed by gambling debts and people selling themselves into slavery to pay off betting losses. The craziest part is that Romans invented systematic betting on gladiator fights. They had detailed odds on different fighters, betting pools for specific types of combat, and even side bets on how long fights would last. Modern sports betting is basically a direct descendant of Roman gambling culture. This underground gambling empire lasted for centuries, with millions of Romans participating in illegal dice games, despite the severe legal consequences. They were so committed to their gambling that they risked everything just to experience the thrill of chance. That's all for today. These ancient civilizations prove that humans have always been drawn to games of chance, no matter the consequences. From Egyptian pharaohs taking dice to their graves to Roman soldiers risking military punishment for a quick game, gambling has been shaping human behavior for thousands of years. Subscribe to see more incredible historical mysteries that will completely change how you view the ancient world.